Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. I'm Kristen Abel, and we are here with another edition of Essay Reads. This is our January edition, and we have been talking about, or we're going to be talking about social media, and an awesome book that is not that recently out, but still somewhat recently out. And we even have the author here with us, and Lisa's going to tell you a little bit about that.
Hi everybody, Happy New Year. Welcome to our first edition of Essay Reads for 2015. As Kristen mentioned, I am Lisa Endersby, and you've got my Twitter info and Kristen's Twitter info in our lower third below. And we are quite fortunate to have with us this evening Ray Hunko. He's talking about his latest book, Engaging Students Through Social Media, Evidence-Based Practices for Use in Student Affairs. I had to look it up to make sure I had the right title. It's a long title, but a lot of good info in there. So we're going to be asking Ray some questions about his book. Kristen and I have a few prepared questions, but we're also going to open the floor to all of you. So please do tweet us, #SAReads. Kristen and I will do double duty tonight and be interviewing Ray while at the same time checking social media while the other is talking. So please don't hesitate to ask questions over on the hashtag, share your comments. We'll try to get to them as best as we can. But Ray, do you want to say hello to everybody out in Essay Reads land?
Hi, everybody in Essay Reads land, and it's so funny that you said that about the book title, that you have to like look it up to remember the title, because I have to do that too. So I think the book title went through about 57 different iterations, and so it's kind of embarrassing when someone asks me, "What's the title of your book?" And like I have to pull out my phone and say, "Hold on a second, let me go look for it on Amazon and tell you, okay, it's this," and then I have to kind of take a breath afterwards because it's that long. So
well, that makes me feel better.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it's especially good when you can say, let me look it up on Amazon. Here's the link to it if you want to purchase it. It's right here on Amazon.
Yes.
I see what you're doing. That makes sense.
Yeah. Not like that,
great.
but that works.
To get us started, Ray, we just wanted to have, an open question to you. What prompted you to write a book like this, and why do you think it's important that a book like this exists?
Well, what prompted me, so I guess the bigger picture was that I had this book on the back burner for some time. I thought it was a book that needed to be written, but I also felt like I wasn't going to do it right away because I was spending my time in other projects and things like that. And certainly it ended up being exactly what I thought, that writing a book would keep me away from other kinds of writing. Which was both good and bad, because it was great to expand my creative writing abilities a bit more, because the book is it's an academic book and it's written in an academic tone, but I got to theorize a lot more than I would in an academic paper. So the flip side is I didn't get to write as many academic papers. So I was really kind of on the fence about I don't know when I'm going to write this, and I kept saying, okay, I'll do it after, I do this project and after this project, and I just kind of never got around to it. And then I got an email from John Shu saying, hey, I'm recruiting people for Josie Bass to write books, and we would love for you to write a book on social media. And so really interesting conversation with John, where I was saying, well, I want to write some more academic papers, and I want to, I'm on the faculty track, and I'm looking for a different kind of faculty job. And he said, well, books will help you just as much, and kind of giving me mentoring advice. And lo and behold, John ended up being one of the people who recruited me to this job at Iowa State. So we're kind of full circle. So that is how this book came to be, was because of that process. But the thinking behind the book. I've often said that this book is a data dump of everything I've been thinking about over the last 3 or 4 years, and so a lot of that thinking has happened through Youth and Media, the Youth and Media Lab at the Berkman Center, and the work we've been doing there, and thinking about how young people are using social technologies and how it's affecting their learning.
Awesome. First, I do just want to, we've already made a plug for the book, and obviously this whole show is a plug for the book, but I did just finish reading the book for tonight's show, and I want to say, and this is not just because Ray's here, I would say it even if he wasn't, but it's fabulous, and it's totally on the mark, and it was everything that I was looking for from this kind of scholarly approach to social media for student affairs, and I would definitely recommend that any of you all pick it up. I'm going to be recommending it to all of my colleagues to pick up. So I do just want to throw that out there. I was way impressed with the book.
Well, thank you, Kristen. That's very kind of you.
Absolutely. So a couple of the things that I really appreciated. One of the things that really struck me was this idea of adult normative versus youth normative approaches or perspectives. Do you want to talk a little bit about that for our audience and kind of explain that?
Yeah, and so I love that adult versus youth normative concept that that I believe one of my colleagues at Berkman made up, Urs Gasser, and I cite him in the book about it. That it's this idea that that we often interpret young people's online behaviors from our framework, right? So if our framework, meaning older adults or adults, and if we see somebody, for instance, on Facebook all the time, or if we see young people using cell phones all the time, we think, well, because if we use technologies that way, the way that it looks to us, then that means that we would be disconnected. So therefore, these young people are also disconnected. So the adult normative perspective is a really prescriptive approach that doesn't take into account youth lived experience, students' lived experiences in how they're using technology, and doesn't really have a focus on trying to find that out. And so the youth normative perspective is diving in and understanding what young people are doing it and why they're doing it, and not kind of being wary of the technology, but actually using it, right? So you hear this all the time with technologies like probably the newest one that we've heard about on college campuses is maybe Yik Yak, right? And oh my God, Yik Yak is terrible, right? And then but there's also the flip side too, that if you get on Yik Yak, you actually can get your finger on the pulse of what's going on
Absolutely.
on campus and what people are talking about. So yeah, that's I think in more than a nutshell the adult versus youth normative perspectives.
Well, and it's a great way to describe, instead of falling into those old terms of digital native and digital immigrant, which there's a whole section on why those are inappropriate, and really getting away from those and talking about how so many student affairs practitioners are really youth normative because we're trying to meet students where they're at.
I would hope that we are, but I think that
Right.
part of the reason that I wrote this book was we certainly haven't been, especially with social media. I mean, there and as I write in the book, and gross generalizations are terrible, but I think as a field, we should be much more advanced in meeting students where they are with social media than we are. And I've felt that way for a long time, and I think that was one of the reasons why I thought I should probably write the book sooner rather than later.
Awesome.
So what about people, like I have a lot of colleagues who shall remain nameless, who fall more into the category of that adult normative of it's bad and it's terrible and look at all what's happening, and a really fear-based approach to social media. And I know you talk about that a little bit, but I'm curious as to your thoughts about maybe where that comes from and more importantly what we might be able to do about that.
Yeah, I think it's a easy heuristic to say, and if you're someone who is not seeking out to say that social media are bad, and it's if you're not really interested in seeking out more information and kind of reading what's out there in the research and taking a more balanced approach, then it's difficult. I think we have a problem with dialogue in North America, that we tend to become rather polarized, and that's not necessarily like some societal ill. I think it's just human information processing. It's a lot easier to say like, okay, social media are bad because I've heard about all of these bad things, and so I think the thing that I encourage is obviously a more balanced approach, but I think it comes from that. I think the psychological, sociological drives to do that, but I think there's also popular media that that promote a lot of these negatives. And I have some headlines in the book that I found, and it's just like really kind of ridiculous stuff, like Facebook causes divorces, and Facebook is the worst social networking site for bullying, and Facebook equals narcissism, and oh no, what's the one? Does Facebook equal a narcissistic outlook, right? Which is actually not even a question; it's more of a statement. And
there was the one that talked about your book, the one that I was tweeting back and forth with you about. They called it the Facebook addiction.
Addiction, right? And then you read it, right? So like the title is about this Facebook addiction, and I really the person who wrote it, I think, is a great reporter, and did a fantastic job writing up the story. But the title, right? And like, of course, I don't even think there's such a thing. So as technology addiction. I mean, if you use it in the vernacular, but I don't live in the vernacular. I'm a trained psychologist, and so to me, that's there's no such thing as a technology addiction. But you're right. That's exactly a perfect example of how the media can take something and run with it. I remember once and honestly, I don't remember which outlet this was, but the person wrote the story, and then it had this really sensational headline, and I'm like, what the hell is up with this headline? Because I'd been communicating with the reporter, and the reporter said, oh, well, when the editors looked at it, they wanted something a little bit more snazzy, so they made that the headline. And you need clicks, right? Clicks equal views, and views equal revenue, and I think that's really important in a market that's thin right now. It's a very thin market, and you got to capture readership, and you have to really go as niche as possible, and provocative sells. So.
Yeah, I love that you're talking about the availability heuristic. My limited psych training, I only have an undergrad in psych, but my psych training started going off thinking about that availability heuristic idea. And I remember going to a workshop a few years ago at a conference, and the title, and it was a packed room, and the title was The Dangers of Social Media Unveiled. And it packed the room. And you walk in, and it was all about crisis management using social media, and how students are tweeting things that we shouldn't have them be tweeting, and how do we stop them from tweeting it. So certainly have been around those conversations. Yeah,
a couple of times this past week with my latest study, I've been asked, so should we be telling students, not to use, should we tell freshmen not to use Facebook? I'm like, no, that's not,
Kristen and I, our hands just hit the desk. Yeah.
And here I was hoping we were past that.
Yeah, right?
No. And then I use, I explicitly use the phrase, no, freshmen need to be on Facebook, and then I explain why. So I go provocative the other way, right? Listen to this. Listen to this fight. Listen to this clip. But you're right, Lisa. The availability heuristic really plays a role there. That you're more likely to overestimate the frequency with which something happens because you can more readily recall examples. So plane crashes are the prime example of that, right? People are afraid to fly because the plane might crash. However, the statistical probability that you're going to get in a plane crash versus a car crash are, completely, you're much more likely to die in a car crash than you are in a plane crash. And so that's not something we really think about, or at least that people think about when they're really afraid to fly because the plane might crash. So that's the availability heuristic, and we do that with social media.
So how do we replace it with, the good stories? If there's so much out there about the negative and the bad and the scary, how do we, to use student affairs terminology, disrupt the narrative that everything is negative and scary about social media?
Yeah, well, I think we need to recognize narratives, right? And so I think that that just as dangerous as the moral panic narrative that we're talking about is the progress narrative. That technology will fix all our social evils, and so combating the one narrative with the other I think isn't the approach. I mean, I think it's the approach that is taken in the media, but I don't think as student affairs professionals that we need to, that we need to combat moral panics by then engaging in progress narratives. So I think the way to do it is to recognize positives and negatives, right? The latest study that you mentioned was a perfect example. That one of the things I write about in the paper, and I've also talked about afterwards in the media coverage, is that, wait a minute, freshmen do need to be on Facebook, and this is why. This is how they maintain their connection with their former group of friends, and this is how they build and establish and maintain new friendships on campus, and how that's really important. And then it's clear that there's something having to do with self-regulation, that they are having problems regulating their Facebook use, and that seems to predict academic performance. And to me, it's not about Facebook at all. It's about like what Facebook can show us about what students are doing and some of their psychological processes that we may otherwise not have any access to.
Right.
Yeah, you know, one of the things that I love about the book is that you really talk about not social media isn't the cure for all, but it might be it might have some potential for your situation or for your problem that you're trying to solve at the time, but that you really need to evaluate the problem and figure it out. And it's a tool. It's not the end-all be-all. And that's, I think, a really important message for a lot of student affairs practitioners, well, for all of us, especially those who have come in like gangbusters on, yes, we're going to use social media because it's cool, you know, and that's where the students are, right? But instead what we're saying is, okay, this is just one more potential tool that we have in our toolbox to really reach students. If that works for this situation, great, and if it doesn't, that doesn't mean we adopt it anyways.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We need to think about it as just another educational intervention, and really consider it that way, and consider that if we can get better results with something else, we should probably be doing that other something else, right? Mm-hmm. And you're right, that, I mean, that makes me so itchy, right? That people are like, let's use social media because it's cool. I've been in those meetings, and that's why I say in the book, I feel sorry for you if you've been in those meetings, because I've been there. And, you know, I just have to, you know, kind of roll my eyes and be like, yep, this is a windmill that maybe I don't want to tilt out right now because I have way too many other things to do. And you know what it's like in higher ed, because you speak up and you're like, hey, I think we should do things this way. And guess what? You have just volunteered to lead. That's gonna make things that way.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Yeah, Kristen and I can both attest to that many times.
Yes.
SA Reads happened.
Yeah.
Hey, it'd be cool if we did a book club, and here we are.
There you are. There's your book club. Ta-da.
Yep.
So you mentioned.
Sorry,
you're talking about Facebook and Twitter in the book a lot, and I'm curious to see, you know, since that's been published, since you've finished writing that, and I know you're moving on to other research and everything, how, I guess I'm curious if you're seeing students using Facebook differently. And, you know, there's been this whole students are leaving Facebook kind of, again, the mass hysteria over the headlines, which we know is not really accurate. But are you seeing them using it differently, and does that impact any of the information that you shared in the book about how we use Facebook?
Yeah. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can find the link to send it out. I cited in the book my colleague and really good friend Mary Madden over at Pew, when they had some data that the media ran with it and said, young people are leaving Facebook. She wrote this wonderful blog post about how young people actually are not leaving Facebook. They're actually using a wider variety of social media, and I think you see that with like niche applications, right? So Instagram serves a certain purpose, and Vine serves a certain purpose, and Yik Yak serves a certain purpose. Those are all very different than the purposes served by Facebook, and certainly I think Facebook is losing some of its luster for that reason, and I think that Facebook I mean, there's some philosophical dimensions to Facebook that are reflected in how the platform is developed that might lead people to be like, well, let me kind of diversify my social media um, repertoire. So, do I see young people using Facebook differently? Perhaps maybe it's not the catch-all anymore because there are so many other sites, but I also feel like I'd like to collect some more data, right? And then like broadly speaking, what does it mean, right? I was just in a PhD defense on Friday where the student wrote about different uses of Facebook, but conceptualized that in different ways. So the person looked at activities on Facebook, but they also looked at motivations for using Facebook. And I think that's really important to look at it that way. Like, what are the reasons why people are using Facebook? And I have some of those data. I just haven't analyzed them yet. I just said, gave the thumbs up to admit my first PhD student. Yay!
Yay.
And those of you out there in internet land, if you're thinking about doing a PhD and you want to do something on social media, please be in touch. Contact me. I am building a team of superheroes, and so we're working on that right now. There were some other students who also might come, and so I had to say yes to one because I had funding for the one. I mean, if I could let in the 4 and have funding for the 4, I would do that too. So we're working on that right now as to whether I can get some funding for them. But yes, we're going to be looking at those things.
Awesome.
So we already have a Wonder Woman, so we've got part of the superhero team already. And she does social media.
Hey, Kristen, come
Sorry,
and do
Kristen.
Come and do with me.
I'm thinking.
Dr. Abel? I don't know. Got a good ring to it. Just saying.
Yep.
Just in. So, and just to build on that a little bit, what kinds of research would a potential PhD student do with you? What kind of work would they be doing? What would they be studying? What's next in researching social media?
That's the fun about being a PhD student. They would be doing what's next, right? Like it is, I mean, I have stuff, right? Like I have projects and I have ideas and I have data and I have all those things. But where it becomes extra exciting for me is to have students coming in who are interested in the work but who have different perspectives on the work, right? And so they might be working on a project with me and say, oh, well, we're doing this on this project, but I am curious about looking at X, Y, or Z. And I think that's the really fun thing. So really sky's the limit. To me, it's like, what does the student want to look at, right? I mean, right now, I have a couple of projects that people can, jump right in on, and those include, we have a funded project where we're looking at educational apps and how well they do what they say they're going to do, and I'm, doing some experimental designs with that, doing some data collection, working with some colleagues over at University of Michigan because we're co-PIs on the project. Nicole Ellison is the other co-PI. And so there's that. I have a big data set of what students did on their computers for a month, along with like personality variables and variables from the institution. So there's a lot of opportunity for predictive modeling. I'm teaching an intermediate educational stats course this semester for PhD students. Woohoo! And
you're the only one going woohoo for stats. I'm in the back like, oh.
Yeah, I know. But people online are probably puking. But very excited. And one of the things we're doing in the course is I have shared that data set with students, and not only are we using it to learn stats and to learn SPSS, but they're also going to write a research proposal and a research paper based on something they come up with, an idea for research they come up with based on the data. And I'm really hopeful that some of those will be publishable. They're intended to be publishable, and so I'm hopeful that most, if not all, will be actually publishable. And so what people can expect to do with me is publish and push at the edges of new knowledge for social media and learning and young people and how they use technology and online safety and predictive analytics and things like that. Yep.
Well, I just tweeted about it, so expect a lot of mentions and inbox requests soon, I imagine. Just it now.
Let me
as soon as Kristen or I tweet something, I'm sure it's just out there.
Yes. I'm retweeting you now. There we go.
Good.
A little
yes. I got a Ray retweet. Kristen, do you have a question, or I have another one?
Go for it.
Okay. So kind of along the lines of, well, it's sort of a potential PhD topic. It's something I've been kicking around in my head, PhD related, though I don't know if predictive analysis is in my future, but who knows. The very first word in your book title is engaging, and that term engagement gets thrown around so much, whether it's social media, technology, even in class. And I've been having some great conversations with people just talking about how to measure engagement, what engagement looks like. For my assessment folks, it's a lot of conversation about what engagement looks like and how we can measure it now that we've got things like social media and how engagement may look different. So that's a rambling way of asking what your definition of engagement is, particularly when it comes to social media or other online activities.
Right. Well, I often will refer to myself as an engagement researcher who just happened to study technology. And I know that often when we hear the words social media and engagement together, people are talking about marketing and engagement on the platform actually. So when I think of engagement, and the engagement that I talk about in the book is actual student engagement. So a la Aston and Koo and that kind of engagement that we talk about a lot in student affairs. So to me, engagement is perhaps going back to the old school definition, the physical and psychological energy that students spend towards the desired outcomes of a college education, and those include, things like graduation, of course, but critical thinking and psychosocial growth and those kinds of things. So I have often asked people, what does an engaged student look like? And we could all think about what an engaged student looks like versus a non-engaged student. So one of the things that I try to do is measure that, and that's, I would say, not easy. And by not easy, I'm not saying that, hey, look, I can measure engagement well and I'm Superman. No, I take a shot at it. I try to measure engagement. We do the best we can with the tools that we have. But I think that could be a line of research. If somebody wanted to come work with me, right, is just to figure out what would be a good way or a better way to measure engagement.
And I ask that in part because a lot of the time when and Kristen, you might have had this experience too, when we're introducing some of our colleagues to things like Twitter or other social media sites, they take engagement really to be a quantitative measure. They need to see a lot of something happening. So that's a lot of conversation about how many likes did that get, and a lot of the reporting is it got this many retweets or we tweeted this often. So how do we go beyond a definition like that, and what's more of a qualitative approach to engagement on social media?
Well, I think those are, I think we're talking about two different kinds of engagement, right? Like, the only reason I care about the engagement that you're talking about is that it can serve as a proxy to help me learn about the engagement that I'm interested in, right? And so I think that the focus is very different. If you're talking about likes and stuff, number of likes and stuff on Facebook, we're not talking the same language. We're not talking about, I understand that language, but that's not my research focus, right? My research focus is the other thing, the other engagement, the student affairs type of engagement. So I think maybe if I understand your question correctly, that that's not the domain, at least, that I want to be living in.
Yeah,
it's really just thinking. Go ahead, Kristen.
Oh no, I was just saying, like, one of the things that I've struggled to get my colleagues to understand is that we're not necessarily assessing the tool itself. We're assessing whether the tool has done the job that we're trying to do with
Right.
it.
Right.
So, like, if we're trying to get students to apply to the university by using social media, it's not, likes isn't going to tell us anything about that.
Right.
Whether we get more applications that have somehow engaged with us through social media, sorry, I used engaged, I made it all confusing there, but who have somehow interacted with us on social media, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, and I think too that that we also need to move beyond, and perhaps this is more aligned with Lisa's question. We need to move beyond just indices like likes, right? Because what is, as I mentioned, what that PhD student was writing about is like, what's the motivation? What are they actually doing when they're on Facebook? What kinds of activities are they engaged in while on Facebook? But what is the drive by which they do that, right? Are they doing that to connect with other students? Are they doing that because they were told they have to for incoming students? Are they doing that because they want to build new relationships, right? And I think those are all important in terms of outcomes.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about where you're headed next. You've spent a lot of time on Facebook and Twitter. Will you continue researching those, or do you have plans to look at Yik Yak, at Snapchat, at those sorts of things? I'd like to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, I do, but you have to, and that's something that that I'm hoping some PhD students might want to take the lead on.
It's been retweeted. There's a lot of Twitter traffic about that all of a sudden.
Good. Let's get people on board. I actually posted a blog post about it. Actually, I should get the link and send that out too. Yeah, I mean, I have some ideas. I have some Yik Yak ideas. I have some Snapchat ideas. Actually, on my to-do list is to get in touch with one of the folks from from Yik Yak and talk to them about it. I'm a big fan of Yik Yak. I mean, I'm informally researching Yik Yak, and hold on a second, let me pull it up. My Yakarma is 756. Woo! So
is that good?
It's a really interesting tool, and of course you read the book, so you know my feeling about anonymity and pseudonymity and how it really helps people take creative risks that they otherwise wouldn't take. So I have some ideas. There's only one of me, and I've got some projects that are going on right now, and I also have some projects in the works that don't relate to newer platforms specifically, and so I'm hoping that some PhD students or master's students will want to take the lead on some of that.
I just tweeted out your blog post, so we've got that. I went ahead and put that out there again.
Awesome. So for someone who's probably who may be newer into this idea of social media beyond just tweeting or Facebooking and is interested in learning more about engaging with social media and supporting students and colleagues in social media, we're, of course, as Kristen mentioned, promoting your book here on SA Reads tonight. But where else can they find, where else can our readers find other information or ideas? What are you reading? What are you investigating? Where else can we go to learn more or even to have more discussions like this?
Yeah, I'm reading papers. I'm not reading books right now, and I'm probably not going to read books for a bit. So the last book I read was for the counseling skills class, so just kind of wonky academic stuff for classes. I think there are a lot of stars on my Mendeley, things that I have to get back to and read. And where to get that information? I mean, for me, the work that I do, I'm out there. I have Google alerts for Google Scholar alerts for certain topics. I also have Google Scholar alerts for my own work, and so like when people kind of cite my work, I can see if anything's related, and that's a way that I read new stuff and get new stuff. So discovery that way. discovery through reading new papers and following references there. What else? Oh, it's also really helpful to be a reviewer, right? And so and I guess what happened, which makes total sense, is in December, before everyone left for the December break, people submitted all of these manuscripts to journals, and when I got back in January, I seriously, like the first week of classes, I had like 10 requests. Obviously, I can't do all of those, but like I was sad because I had to pick and choose from some really cool looking articles to review. So I think it's really helpful to do that, because then you get to read about stuff that people are doing before it gets published. I think through my network of colleagues, I hear about things too, about what's being published, what's being worked on, dissertations and things like that. Going to conferences, the Family Online Safety Institute conference was really good, and had a lot of good information about the research that was being done, not just by researchers, but also the research that was being done by places like Facebook and Instagram, which is now Facebook too, and Google and places like that.
So just to follow up a little bit more on that, there are a lot of our colleagues who are reading and have probably done similar things, have read journal articles or reviewers, or have been tweeting and reading about what's going on. But I know, and I've had this conversation with some of younger colleagues, or people just starting out in the field, or even some of our grad students, how to start a conversation about this, or how to engage, to use that term, in this kind of discussion. They have ideas, or they want to share more, and maybe not even informally. They want to start writing, or they want to start researching, but they may not be in a program, or they're looking for ways to explore. Do you have any advice for people who are looking to delve a little deeper into this topic?
I think collaborate, right? I mean, work with people who are, interested in the topic and maybe have already, published. Maybe, there are professionals who publish, and maybe start thinking about what might be some good outlets for your work. Sometimes a good outlet for your work is, some of the NASPA publications, or like a Kuho, or like Talking Stick is like a good example, right? To start writing about some ideas. I think, I have gotten some great ideas just by talking, right? And you talk to people, you have some ideas, and then like you write them out, and then they end up being something like a blog post or an op-ed or something. And do that. Submit op-eds, or submit guest blog posts and things like that. I think those are all ways that are helpful. But if you want to dive right in, find somebody who's been doing research, and see if they're interested on your campus, or maybe someone nationally that you've connected with online or through a conference, and do that. I often like I like to say I'm lucky, right? This is privilege that I recognize, that I get to work with people who I like, and I only like to work with people who I like, right? And so that makes the process a lot more fun, right? So many collaborations of mine have started with, I like you, we should work together, let's figure out a way to work together, right? And so that's a lot of fun, and I think that's good for people to do that. Find people that they can really relate to, and then connect with them and work with them.
And I was just saying, that's the great thing about Twitter. That's how a lot of those conversations happen. Everybody's got the same 140 characters. It's not as intimidating as you think to reach out to someone and tweet them a question and start that conversation. That's how Kristen and I met, though details are a little fuzzy as to who tweeted whom first. And the details are also fuzzy as to why Kristen continues to tweet me. By some great act of patience and generosity and charity, she continues to do so, which I'm forever grateful for.
Right. I'm on this call because of Twitter, right? I've met you both through Twitter, and met lots of people through Twitter, and it's fun because then we meet at a conference. It's like, oh yeah, hey, what's up? Known you for a while, right?
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It levels the playing field in a lot of ways.
Yep. I've talked about that a lot. Yep. Yeah. Absolutely.
Kristen, do you have any other questions?
I don't know. Not now. I'm still processing the book and everything. So I think I've covered a lot of it that I wanted to talk about. I mean, I think one of the things that you talk about in the book is personal learning networks and all the online professional development that you can get using social media and how you can connect with people there. And this is just another example of that.
Mm-hmm. I'm scrolling on our hashtag, and what I love is, I mean, we recognize, Twitter friends, that it's an odd time of the evening to be having this conversation. So we're getting a lot of really great topic, but can't be there. Really great topic, but I'm in my car. Really great topic, but so I have a feeling that after we're done here, there's a conversation that will be continuing over on SA Reads, which is fantastic, and please continue to do so. We certainly encourage the conversation to go beyond our time together here. But in our remaining moments, Ray, one thing Kristen and I always do is, and you've already sort of answered this question, we ask about what else you're reading. So you're not really any books. So I don't know if you can answer that. Do you have any cool journal articles, any cool long titles that we might want to try and tweet out?
All right, hold on. Let me give you some long titles. Oh wow, I mentally crashed, so I have to cover that.
Will they fit to 140 characters?
I can tell you what we're reading for my class.
Okay.
Hold on a second. Let me see what I've added recently. Oh no, that's the wrong direction. Okay. Okay, stuff that I have to read is Sexting, Substance Use, and Sexual Risk Behavior in Young Adults.
Are you Googling, Kristen?
Yeah.
Prevalence and correlates of sexting behavior in adolescence. Sexting behaviors among young Hispanic women, incidents and associations with other high-risk sexual behaviors. Do you see a theme here?
Yeah.
A little bit.
Here's something different. Development and validation of the short grit scale.
Cool.
Academic tenacity, mindset and skills that promote long-term learning. A global research agenda for children's rights in the digital age by Sonia Livingstone and Monica Bulger. Actual Friends Matter, an internet skills perspective on teens' informal academic collaboration on Facebook. Home location identification of Twitter users. That's a real, kind of wonky data science one, but I'm really excited to read that. Robust de-anonymization of large, sparse data sets. Some of these...
He's lost me. Now I'm done. He's lost me entirely.
Actually, you know what? I have read my colleague Bruce Schneier, who does a lot of security work, and the NSA loves him. Not really. By loves, I mean exact opposite. And Bruce actually has a book coming out, and I read the original manuscript of that and provided feedback, and that's an excellent book that will be out soon. And hold on a second. I can give you the full title. Let me look for that, because it was actually wonderful. And the reason I thought of that just now was because some of these references I got from reading Bruce's book. So let me see. It's called Data and Goliath: The Hidden Battles to Capture Your Data and Control Your World.
And heavy title.
That is a heavy title, and this is, let's see. It is available on Amazon for pre-order. It comes out March 2nd. Yay! And it's a wonderful book. And here is, I'm going to tweet out the link now.
Awesome.
I was like Googling and looking for it. I was ready.
I know. I saw Kristen. You were ready to go, but I figure if he's got it, we'll let him do that.
I'll retweet that.
And Ray, I'm just curious, where does that discussion of grit fit in? Because that's an area that I'm really interested in. So where does that fit in with your social media work?
Yeah, that's I'm focusing a lot on self-regulation these days, and so that's in the big data set, and I think that I'm also doing some consulting work looking at prediction of self-regulation and how we might use online proxies, trace data, basically, to predict self-regulation in order to be able to identify students who might be more at risk for academic failure, and so we can intervene appropriately. So that's one piece. The other piece is we're examining self-regulation in this funded study, and we're looking at the ability of an app to impact middle schoolers' self-regulation skills. And I also have a project that I'm cooking up that we've applied for some funding for, looking at how we can develop more digital tools to help improve young people's self-regulation skills.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, Kristen, what are you reading these days?
What's that?
No, I was asking Kristen a question.
Oh.
She's asking what I'm reading these days.
I'm asking because she has a stack, so I want to know what's in that stack.
I have to admit, so my new hobby, if you haven't seen me on Twitter or whatever, has been, it's not new, but I've been spending a lot of time on it, is cross-stitching. And so I've been cross-stitching all these funky little designs, and I've spent more time on that than I have on reading lately, although I am reading All the Light We Cannot See, which is a book set in World War II, France and Germany. Which is pretty good. It's actually very good. Of course, I just finished reading Ray's book, which I loved, and I have also been reading some Dana Boyd recently to go along with Ray's book, and we've been doing some talking about social media in our division of student affairs, and so I've been rereading some stuff and reading stuff and immersing myself in it so that I can better talk about it.
And just as a plug, Kristen has an Etsy shop, so if you're interested in her cross-stitching, just saying. Now you do have thebomb.com, but you don't have thebomb.ca yet, which is what this Canadian is looking for.
I need to submit. My favorite is still the F-bomb, but you know.
Yeah. Wait, you own thebomb.com for real or no?
No. I have a little cross-stitch that's a bomb.com.
Which is cute, but as the Canadian, I'm not feeling the love over here.
Right. Hey, send out a link to your Etsy shop. I want to see it. I'm sure other people want to see it.
All right, I will.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have an...
Actually, these are from a Twitter friend.
Ah.
And I believe she originally made one for me and one for my son, and his head was too big, so I got to use his other one. But because I have now shaved my head, it can be cold sometimes, even inside, so I just, will wear this. See that?
Excellent. Nice. I like it.
Drop in the fashion. I have lots of beanies. I love these crocheted ones, though, so if anybody's crocheting and has an Etsy shop out there, let me know, holla, because I want to get some more. Because they're so yeah, right. So that's what Ray's thinking about these days.
Well, all you need is like a bomb.com sign behind there. If you've got blank wall space, just have the bomb.com behind there. Just saying. Yep. Well, while Kristen's tweeting her Etsy shop out, I do not have an Etsy shop. I'm not artistically inclined in that way. But I am reading a couple of cool things. So most of you know that I had a 30 before 30 list, and now that I've turned 30, I've revamped some of those list items for a decade list, or what I plan to accomplish between the ages of 30 and 40. And some of those, of course, are reading goals. So one thing on my list in terms of reading goals is really delving back into Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes series. So I keep a book of Sherlock Holmes short stories by my bed, and usually devour half of one or one an evening. Really enjoying the different kind of writing style. It takes a little more to read. It's not always just a pleasure read. You have to kind of figure out what ye olde English was all about and what things mean. And as a Canadian, you think that'd be easier, but it's really not. So attempting to decipher some of his language, but really good storytelling, and I enjoy that kind of stuff. So my goal is to read pretty much the entire canon of Sherlock Holmes between now in the age of 40, so I'm well on my way. I was saying to Kristen right before we went live on air, The Girl on the Train by Paula Hawkins. It's a new-ish book. It's one of the Spotlight, so I was traveling on the subway today, and the bookstores have their Spotlight series of books, so it's all over the subway. But it's a fascinating read. It's a suspense thriller. So as many of you know, in S.A. Reads Land, I love me some murder mysteries, and I love me some suspense thrillers. And a really interesting psychological story about lives intertwining and how you want to keep reading really fast because you're not sure how one life interplays with the next, and just when you think you know what's happening, something else happens. And I love those kinds of things, especially when they speak to the human condition, even if it's a bit of a darker side of the human condition. And to make it look like I'm reading things professionally as well as just personally, so I'm actually reading for work as well. I'm just pulling up the title on my Toronto Library's ebook account, which is the best thing in the entire world. Smarter Than You Think: How Technology is Changing Our Minds for the Better by Clive Thompson. I've literally just opened the book. I am on page 1. But was attracted to that because it kind of speaks to a little bit of what were you talking about, Ray. It's a positive spin on technology and social media. So not just the dangers of social media unveiled or how we can manage social media and technology, but really looking at how it is a help and not just a hindrance. So I'm excited to get back to reading this and get beyond page 1, and I'm sure I'll have more to say when we see each other again, Kristen, in February.
Mm-hmm.
I love Clive Thompson. And,
oh, good.
Yeah, we've actually chatted about some of my research, and I think he wrote something about some of my work somewhere.
Cool.
In Wired, yes.
Awesome.
Well, I'll tell Clive you say hi.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Well, I do just want to thank Ray again for joining us tonight. This was a fantastic chat. I really enjoyed hearing from you and getting to hear it straight from you, because usually they're just hearing from us as we tell about the book secondhand. So it's great to have you with us and share some of your thoughts and perspectives.
Thank you.
So thank you again.
Yeah, it was fun. I'm glad I was able to join. And I know this seemed last minute because it was. I was supposed to be in Cambridge this week, and the snowstorm that ate New England came by, snowpocalypse, but I guess snowpocalypse has been played out already, so we need to find some other
a new one. It's like, yeah.
Snowmageddon?
We've got like 70-degree temperatures here in Kansas City, so it's like summer here practically.
Nice. It's like you live in Ames, Iowa, when it's been like in the low 40s, and we're all feeling like this is summer. Right?
Yeah, you're wearing shorts and t-shirts, right?
Not me, but other, the students are doing that.
I remember that.
Yeah, I've been a little crazy since I've gotten back in terms of scheduling and stuff, and so I haven't been riding my bike as much. But I mean, there's no snow or ice, so I should be riding my bike, and I'm trying to see how. One of the things I wanted to do was to see how late into the season I could still ride my bike, because I'm easy biking distance from my office and other things on campus. And so I bought, I went into an outdoor store and bought ski pants. They're like, "What activity would you like them for?" And I said, "Biking." And but I've done that, and so far my record's 12 degrees. So wish me luck. Yep. And
Spoken like a true Canadian, but not really a Canadian.
Right, exactly. Well, my Canadian vibe is I'm watching Continuum.
Ooh, good show. Good show.
Yeah. Don't say nothing. I just started.
Okay.
3. Because I have so much time, I'm watching so much Continuum. It was funny. It was, what was that? Maybe last week where I turned on an episode before going to bed, and I was like, "Oh, this episode's gonna be."
Yeah. And as a Canadian, we're all over the place here. I mean, of course, I think in Celsius, so I can't do the math conversion very quickly. But we've been all over the place. On our west coast in Vancouver, it's been warm, like unseasonably double digits warm, like in the teens in Celsius, which is warm. And then all the way through to where I am, where today it was sunny and beautiful and a little bit of wind, but still cold. And then you head out further east, and Nova Scotia, I think in Halifax, had a bit of a blizzard. So we're all over the place. But the central Canadians are feeling a little smug in the face of snowpocalypse. We're sitting pretty over here in the sun for a bit.
Yeah. I'm, my climate scientist friends hate to hear me say this, but I'm a big fan of global climate change, especially the warming trends. So let's keep it up as long as it means warming trends, because global warming doesn't always mean warming. Mm-hmm. But I will take this weather. And I was here around this time last year, which is when I interviewed here, and it was brutal. Not only was it brutal, but the universe was like, watch out, Ray, because like I was here, and it was, some of the coldest temperatures they had all winter. Then I went back to Indiana, some of the coldest temperatures we had all winter. And then, like the following week, I went to Cambridge, some of the coldest they had all winter. And so I was like, oh my God, I can't get away from this. But now that I'm here,
well, it's like that picture they have on Facebook. Why do I live where the air hurts my face? I'm definitely one of those people who think that on occasion, but as a proud Canadian, I can't say that too loudly because it's bad. We like the cold. We embrace it. Eh?
Yes, we do. Hey, so I want to come to Canada sometime, and I want to go do some curling and I really want to curl. So like,
we can get you a bonspiel. We can make that happen. We can get you to throw some rocks.
You just said I want that. I like fun.
I'll send you a Canadian curling dictionary to get you started on the vocab, and we'll go from there.
Nice. Eh?
I'm
started. Yeah.
Well, on that super professional note, we will wrap up for the evening. So in the next couple of months, this is a quick plug, as some of you probably have seen. Both NASPA and ACPA are doing some common reading or some book clubs in conjunction with their annual conferences. So Kristen and I will be taking February and March to talk about the ACPA reads and the NASPA book club. So we'll be talking about what books they have on offer. We'll be delving into a couple of them ourselves and sharing some information from them to get you started thinking about what you'd like to read in advance of those conferences. Should you be attending, or should you be following along on the back channel at home? But as always, in the meantime, don't forget to tweet us at #SAReads. Don't forget, if you're looking to do a PhD on social media, Ray is available. And if you have any book suggestions beyond February and March for us, Kristen and I are always looking for recommended reads. As you know, we have large stacks of books, and we'll just continue to pull from them. So if there's anything that you're interested in reading about or talking about, if you are an author with a book out there, an ebook or otherwise, we'd love to have you on the show. So please continue to engage and tweet with us. And until next month, happy reading.
Indeed, happy reading.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.